Welcome to Bible Smack! So, today, what we're going to talk about is, I'm reacting to a video by Jim Carrey, and it was talking about intentions. And I think this is a good verse to kind of focus on. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29. Lo, this only have I found, that God hath made man upright, but he sought out many inventions. Now, while I was watching this video, Jim really comes off very earnest, and I think he is, and so you see somebody who has a search for something transcendent, a search for spirituality, and God gave us all, some people have said like a God-shaped hole in their hearts. And you could see Jim kind of wanting something more than what the naturalistic worldview was offering him. And he's trying to find purpose and meaning. And, he starts to find in himself, his main characteristic is his, funny face. He kind of had that movie known as The Mask. And so he was the man of 1,000 faces. And, really kind of fits in with the personality of an actor. And so basically, he talks about his relationship with his mother and how it all started with him trying to alleviate the pain of his mother's physical turmoil with comedy. And so as we kind of look at that, he starts to kind of go from there and sees like purpose, and then he ends up with this idea of intention. And how what we do is, what makes everything else, that we're all one and we're all part of this, one world. Now, I think that, and this is where things kind of get off into a goofy stint, but kind of focusing in on that, I wanted to kind of turn over, and his worldview, he talks about how he's the universe, how he's the Super Bowl, metaphorically, and what he's basically saying is he's expressing the pantheistic worldview. Now, the pantheistic worldview is called pagan, okay? And when people hear the word pagan, especially from a Christian background, we associate paganism with the devil. Now, how do we make such a connection, okay? Let me go ahead and look in Isaiah chapter 14 where it talks about the famous passage of Lucifer. And it says in Isaiah chapter 14 verse 12, How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. You see, as Lucifer's spelling out his identity, he frames himself just like God's natural name is Jehovah, meaning I am that I am. Instead of I am, Lucifer is framed as I. Okay? And the entire nature of Lucifer and the world system is I. We go back to the Garden of Eden. And the Garden of Eden, I'll just quickly say that he tempts Eve and he says, Ye shall be as gods. And so there's this selfish nature, and it's a selfish nature that's within all humanity, which is all the world system. And so when we get the world together, when we all come together, just like it says in Genesis chapter 11, it talks about the world and the world system. It says, And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. it says in verse 4, "And they said, Go, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad the face of the whole earth." So the world system is unified, and yet it's unified under this selfish nature, which is an example of Satan's personality. So when they start getting into this I thing, and you can see it in Jim, he kind of says, "This is so great, I'm all these things." And as a comedian, I think the cool thing is comedians are cynical. So he kind of actually makes fun of his own worldview and points out the problems by his jokes. He says, "I'm the whole, Super Bowl, I'm the fans, I'm the stadium, I'm selling tickets, I'm the crack dealer down the street." It's a funny joke, but seriously, it's that you've become good and evil. And he says, "Look at me, I am the universe." Well, and then he points out, the lady in the back row, and did you realize that you're all a part of this with your intentions, desires? And you say, "Oh, well, all these desires are one." But all those desires are one because there is one God and tyrant that they are coming from. Lucifer. Lucifer was that spirit of selfishness. This, I will do this, and I will do that, and I will do that. I will reach to heaven. And what does the Tower of Babel do? It says we will reach to heaven. This is the spirit of the world. Yes, we need spirituality in our life, but we need the Holy Spirit. We need the Spirit of God. And we need to become godly. And in godliness, you no longer seek out a place to lift yourself up. The world system is, I become selfless so that I can become selfish, because I'll be part of something bigger, and then I can reach unto heaven. You see what I'm saying? So it's not a true selflessness. And in the worldliness, in the Revelation, it shows the Antichrist. And the Antichrist has a bow that has no arrows. Why does the bow have no arrows? Because his army will fight for him. Jesus Christ comes, and he has a sword, but his army has instruments. Why do they need instruments? Because they're going to worship God, because God will do all the fighting for them. And this is the whole difference, is that you give yourself unto the God of the world for your own self-interest. But the God of the Bible gives himself to you out of his love. And so it teaches you a way of love that's not based on, maybe I can get this out of it. There's a good spirit and there's a bad spirit. And it says in the Bible, friendship with the world is enmity with God. You see, all that you can be part of the universe, but the universe is going to die. It's going to fall apart. And if it falls apart, what are you a part of?